Sketches, bodies, and components. What are they and what do they do? Today, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into some Fusion 360 basics and finish off our card holder project. Alright, well, we left off on our last tutorial with a little bit of a beginner's intro to Fusion, where we created this flat pattern using some rectangles, and we can actually just go right here through the timeline and grab that. And that's what we actually completed. So I wanted to go ahead and continue on here in case you're still interested in furthering this same little project. And we're going to create the other half. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the difference between your bodies, right here, like this body we created, and a component. So a component is part of this assembly. So right when we started this project, this was just one single cube, and it was just one body inside one single part. I guess I want you to think of it like a component being a piece of leather and a body being the parts that might make it up if for some reason you were building it out of pieces. So here, for example, I've got this table assembly that you probably saw from the thumbnail, and it's got a bunch of other objects that are components contained within this assembly, contained within this assembly. I know, that sounds confusing. But I can simplify it to what you actually need to know. Is that if you want to create a PDF from this piece here, and you've got more than one piece there, do you want those PDFs to be separate? You're going to have those be separate components. So let me show you how to do that. First, make sure that you're in your main assembly up here. So there's this little dot, and you could kind of select between different ones if they were in here. Make sure it's in the top one, and you can go create new component. I just happen to have a quick command. If you want to add a quick link to something, these three little dots here, click on that and say pin to toolbar. Or if you want to get rid of one that you've never used, doesn't seem useful yet, go ahead and unpin it from your toolbar. That can be a nice way to clean up your environment. I'm going to click New Component, and it's going to ask me to name it. I'm not even going to bother. Empty component. Alright, so now I've got my new component down here. And now my other component's kind of blurred out. You see how the dot's over this one? Earlier I said you can select it by clicking over it. It's going to kind of highlight everything. I'm just going to click off the screen. Now it would show all my components if there was something in there. And I'm going to go ahead and go back to working right just in this component. So it kind of clears it out just so that you can see the part you're working with, but you can still project or work with the parts that are in the background that interface with it. So now I'm going to I think probably create actually one more component, because I want both of these to be output separately. So I'm going to go back to this one. Good practice for you to be working with components. Back to here before I create a new component. And it's just going to call it component 2. So now I have two components down here. Neither of them contain anything. And I'm sorry if I'm moving too fast on this one. It took me a minute to figure out the difference between bodies and components as well. So here's the body. This little body that I'm actually looking at right here. I can tell that it's that body because I can turn it on and off. Boom. And I want that one to be my first component. I'm pretty sure I can actually drag it and drop it right in there. Now let's go ahead and look for it. There's that body. It's actually all the way in that folder, hiding underneath there. So you're going to have to get used to navigating this little menu over here. I guess they call it your browser. And that's where you're going to put your different things. I can click on this twice, I guess, slowly. And I can type and call it something. Just click back off of that. Now it is front. And let's call this one back. Just because when you get a bunch of them, it really is worth paying attention. So now we've got our front and our back. I'm going to start working on our back by selecting that dot. You can tell because now it's a little bit grayed out. And just like we learned right in the beginning of that last beginner's tutorial, if you haven't watched that and you're starting to get confused, go ahead and go back. I'm sure I'll have a link down in the bottom or in a little pop-up right now that can get you used to making a sketch. We're going to go up here. We're going to make a sketch again. So again, this is like pulling out your piece of paper. And before we had the option to put it on our floor or our walls, but now we've got another option. We're going to put it right on the surface of this other component. So I want you to think of that like you just stuck a piece of paper right onto that piece, like you're tracing it out, like you were going to take your awl and punch the stamps along this piece. Except instead of having to trace it, we're going to hit the P button, but just so you know where it is, it's down here, project, include, and project. That's way too far for me to travel, so I just like to hit the P button. I'm going to click right on here, and it's like sending that geometry, sending that sketch up to this spot here. So now I can start drawing on this. If you guys remember, create menu, it's kind of full of all your rulers, and I need to create a line. I just need to fill this in because it's going to be the back. And I'm pretty sure I can trim. Oh yeah, I gotta break the... Alright, I'm going to pause real quick while I figure this out, and then I'm going to come back to you guys. Alright, there it is. So, I thought I remembered something about that. If you've got it kind of highlighted pink like that, it's still got a link from the other shape. And if it changed, you would, it would change with it. And even though that sounds convenient in this case, you want to be able to alter this shape. So we're going to go ahead and highlight that geometry and right click on it. And down here in this hidden little spot, break link. And I could be wrong, but yeah, that's the color we like to see. So now I should be able to come in here and get rid of some of this stuff. I'm just going to click and hit the delete button. Don't forget the rolly wheel. I guess I sound stupid calling it the rolly wheel. Is your way you're going to zoom in and out. Sorry if I sound a little lame sometime. I'm a high school teacher by day. There we go. So I'm just highlighting stuff and deleting it so that I don't have weird geometry. Honestly, it doesn't matter once I've broken the closed shape because you only get to extrude a closed shape. And here you notice I made a highlighted shape and it highlighted the background. I'm going to hit Control, and when you hold Control while you click on that spot, it's just going to leave what you had in the window highlighted. I'm going to hit that delete button again. Now I'm pretty happy with that shape. Everything matches up. I'm going to go ahead and put that piece of paper away and finish my sketch. I can hit the home view, or if you guys want to fly around with it, there's your cube. And if all goes well, I'm going to click extrude, click on that shape, and drag in the direction I want to go, and 0.1, I do believe, was the thickness. I made the other half. So now to look at both shapes together, I can come up here and reselect my entire assembly. There we go. Just click off your shape to just turns it blue every time. And at this point in the game, I usually turn off my grid pattern because I love to use that right in the beginning for my sketches, but right now it's not very useful. So down there on that grids and snaps. So now I've got I don't know, it looks pretty good. If I'm looking at this and like, oh, I wish I would have rounded those over, that's actually pretty easy. I can do that right now still. Just going to come up here and modify. And just like we used the fillet command to create that curve right here, we're going to use the fillet command and modify in our solids area. And it's going to give us the same kind of option to pull those in however we want them to look. And you can be using this thing around here to move you around. Click in your mouse wheel to drag it around. I'm using a 3D mouse. I'll put the link in the window. It's pretty fun. All right, I'm going to make that 0.125 just because I like everything to be a bit round. I hit enter. All right, so I think that's pretty much the working with multiple components and bodies. Just as a quick recap, the difference between a body and a component is you can have more than one body inside a component, and the bodies are what makes up the component, the different parts. Like if you had a piece of jewelry embedded into a piece of leather on the front of your part, that body would probably be separate, but it's still part of that component. And each component is what you're going to output when you are going to create your design from your drawing. And I already went over a tutorial on how to do this, but just so you know, right here, full assembly means this assembly that you created out of your components full of bodies. That sounds confusing. Alright, so I'm going to unselect that full assembly, and it's going to let me select just one of my components. You know, I'm pretty sure I could select it over here just to make it easy too. And you guys probably have normal person paper. Click OK. I don't personally use a printer or paper, so you're going to have to figure it out from there, but over here, it's in this funny orientation that is a completely useless drawing. So I'm going to have to change that to top view because that's how I drew it in here. And I can place that there. Come down here, get rid of that title block. But if you want, gosh, you can double click on it and edit the title block if you want. I just usually don't use it. And yeah, make sure it's set to a 1:1 scale when you actually go to print it out. I think that's pretty much the PDF, and you have to output that just right from there. I don't need to go any further than that. You can go watch the other video. Alright, and it's a totally separate file. I'm not going to bother saving that. I don't think I saved it as 1:1. And then you do the next thing, or the same thing for that next component. And if this was another thing, you'd just create a new component, as long as you're in that main body, and just keep building up from there. Alright, so I'm sure this was already a little bit overwhelming if you're just getting used to using your computer to create leatherworking patterns. But trust me, there is amazing things you can do far beyond just the little bit that I'm showing you guys on here, and it's really got a lot of opportunity to do some really cool things that that you wouldn't think a program could do, but that it can that it can do for you. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that I'm going slow enough for you guys to start from the beginning. And if you liked it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you can get into the next video that I put out. And if you've got any questions, please comment on here and I'll do my best to get back to you as quick as I can. And till next time, stay creative.